friends. So in today's session, I shall be speaking to mthe, a renowned professional in sourcing and supply chain. He has worked in senior management positions with retailers like Gap, Levi's, and Ralph Lauren. His career spans 4 decades in Southeast Asia, Far East, and finally in the Latin American region. For the last many years, he has been instrumental in setting up the Caracol Industrial Park in Haiti, which provided over 14,500 jobs in the apparel sector. Today, Haiti's exports of apparel sectors are more than $850 million. So today, I would like to welcome him and speak to him and pick his brains for what's happening in the sourcing, what changes are happening in the sourcing world. So, Mark, hi, how are you?
Hi, Sandeep. Good to be here with you. I'm looking forward to this interview and also the 2 days of your video or virtual event. Your events are always very exciting, and it's a great step forward bringing people together during this COVID environment.
Thank you, Mark. So nice of you to join. You have such a wide experience, such a, career spanning 4 decades, and probably I believe you must have traveled over 50 countries for all these activities you were involved in. And it must have been an exciting journey for you.
Yes, it was. I've been very lucky. I've had a fortunate career. It has allowed me to travel all over the world, Eastern Hemisphere, Western Hemisphere, Latin America, China, Asia, everywhere. And I started so long ago in the old days, I even went to the East European countries. Many people won't remember what it was like at that time. But yeah, it's been very exciting. I've seen a lot of transformation, political, technological, and today we have a unique environment. So I'm looking forward to talking about it today.
Absolutely. So you have so many expertise in so many different diverse fields, but of course one of your major specializations is in the sourcing and supply chain. So I want to kind of discuss with you. You think that in apparel sourcing these changes have been occurring regularly in last few years, or let's say decades, in the apparel sourcing?
Very good question, Sandeep. Sourcing is something that is always dynamic. It is never static. It keeps moving. It keeps changing. Over the last 4 decades, I've seen it's been like a pendulum oscillating from one end to the other and back again. In the 80s and 90s, new manufacturing locations were constantly opened up because of quota limitations. Many of the younger people in the industry today will not even remember what quota limitations were, But when quotas were limited to each country, there were specific limits that you could ship. And when the quotas in China and Hong Kong were saturated, the industry, apparel industry, and specifically denims also moved to Indonesia, Thailand, Malaysia, Sri Lanka, etc. And later in the early 90s, when NAFTA was signed, a lot of US product began moving into Mexico and into Latin American countries. Soon after that, the Caribbean Basin Initiative was implemented, and that saw product being sourced out of the Caribbean countries. So depending on legislation, depending on the tariffs, depending on the geopolitical environment, sourcing keeps on shifting. And in 2005, we saw the biggest shift. When the quotas were eliminated, a lot of the product moved away from Mexico and the Caribbean countries and towards Bangladesh, Vietnam, China, etc. And then back again from 2006 to 2010, you had the CAFTA agreement, the Central American Free Trade Agreement, the ATPA, which was for the Andean countries, which opened up a lot of opportunities for Colombia. You, as a denim expert, know very well how forward the Colombian market is in terms of wash developments and styling, and they have their own denim mills as well. So for a time, they saw a boost in their business. And Brazil also benefited from it. And as an emerging economy, you saw a lot of mushrooming in the Brazilian market. So as the sourcing keeps moving back and forth, in the last 15 years, the major growth, of course, has been the transformation in China. You know, as an emerging economy, it precipitated pricing challenges. And although their supply chain was very strong, their quality was good, and they really figured out how to satisfy all their buyers, the price became a problem. So it forced retailers and buyers to migrate their product to Vietnam, Bangladesh, Cambodia, Philippines, and even Pakistan and India. And here again, you see most of the uh, suppliers, the companies, they are usually not companies from within those countries, but they are like the Korean companies or the Taiwanese companies who see the opportunity and they invest in the country where the buyers are interested to buy. So that also helps the product to move. You know, if you go to Vietnam and Cambodia, you look at a lot of the factories, they're owned either by Taiwanese firms or Korean firms, or even some Indian and Sri Lankan companies. You know? So as the product began moving out of China for price pressures, the underlying drivers of the shift are always the price and profitability for the retailer. And after that comes your quality, lead time, and sustainability. You know, you may have good quality, you may have fantastic lead time, and you may have very environmentally friendly manufacturing, but if your price does not allow the buyers to make the margins that they need, the product moves, and that's what drives the sourcing. You know, China proved to be good up to a certain period of time. It met everybody's needs, but then in the last 3 years, since the new administration in the US began and things got more confrontational with China and the tariff war started, those who were heavily invested in China found that to be detrimental and it became very damaging to their supply chains. So that immediately precipitated an emergency and a crisis for some companies, and they had to start re strategizing, planning. And today, everybody is creating new roadmaps. And the COVID, of course, complicated things even further. So, given that the COVID was in China and you had the trade wars out of China, it was an exponentially complex and difficult situation. And that has definitely awoken most of the retailers and importers to look for other opportunities.
Sure. So I mean, as what you say is that the sourcing pattern keeps on changing. And if you let's say if we consider a certain number of years, it's a kind of a pattern. You see kind of a pattern that okay, in a particular region it remains for 5, 7 years or 8 years, and then it goes on to another region, or some regions really enjoy a very long run, and some regions have a quick short run.
That's a great question, you know. Uh, let's talk for a moment specifically about denim. One, because denim is such a big item in retail, and denim I know is an item that's close to your heart, and you know your group is called Denims and Jeans. Uh, I grew up in the denim industry in India in the 70s, you know,
Oh,
so it's hard to believe, but yeah. In the good old days, we used to make 7,000 pairs of jeans in one shift in the factory I worked in.
wow.
So, yeah, denim in the old days, you had a few major brands, right? There was, of course, the inventor of jeans, Levi's, who started the manufacturing in the 1870s. And somewhere towards the end of the 19th century, Lee Jeans was formed. Early 20th century, you had Britannia, Wrangler, Jordache. These were the older generation of jeans, the pioneers, you know. And somewhere in the 70s, a big swing came along with the Gloria Vanderbilt brand, which was promoted by Murjani and made mostly in Hong Kong. And from there, you saw a proliferation of more expensive jeans, and I wouldn't call those designer jeans. Designer jeans really came later on in the mid 80s or early 90s. But there was a whole other set of brands. Like from Japan, you had Edwin. Edwin was a very famous brand out of Japan, followed in the early 2000s by Ivisu. You know, you had in UK and Italy, they had their own brands like Rifle and Ragazza and all of those brands. But then by the mid 80s, early 90s, you even had some good brands coming out of Canada like Point Zero and David Vuitton and a couple of other brands I don't remember right now. And then came the game changers. By 1969, you had Gap. By the 80s, you had Old Navy. You know, Old Navy broke all records. It was the only retailer, and they still hold that record, who went from 0 to 1 billion in 4 years.
Wow.
Yeah. And in order to meet the demand, Gap and Old Navy, in those days they had stores popping up all over the place. They really had to have a global sourcing network. So sourcing was driven by demand. To your question, do some countries see it longer, shorter? In the case of denim, earlier the emphasis was in the Western Hemisphere because of the specific denim aesthetics, the wash requirements, etc. Over a period of time, with Old Navy, with Abercrombie and Fitch, with Express, Limited, jeans started becoming more global because there wasn't enough capacity in this hemisphere, and also the prices became more challenging. So that helped the migration. So the longevity of trend and a product when it comes, the more added value there is, the more longevity it tends to have, the lower the price of the product. Like a t-shirt can move very easily from Tirupur to Bangladesh, from Bangladesh to Thailand, from Thailand to Cambodia, from Cambodia to, I don't know where you want to go, to Haiti or wherever, you know. So the lower value items, which are low complexity and low needle, lower price, tend to move faster. The more expertise that is required, the more know-how and more aesthetic that is involved, the longer the product tends to stay in any country. Of course, the biggest driver is the textile investment. You look at Mexico, they still enjoy a lot of the denim business and jeans manufacturing because of the amount of denim mills that you still have there. You know, Cone Mills is almost shut down in the US, but they still have a strong operation in Mexico. You know, Nian Sing has their operation in China, but they have their twin dragon in Mexico. So these kind of operations have helped Mexico. Having that textile anchor gives them the vertical integration. And of course, they have the proximity to the US. So you can get goods from certain parts of Mexico. In 8 hours, you can deliver them to the US. No other country offers you that benefit.
Absolutely. So, I mean, coming to COVID impact, and how do you see this supply chains changing, and how do you see, which region do you see really coming out as a winner from this? And specifically when we are talking about denim sourcing.
Wow, that's a very interesting question. You know, I see a combination of factors. If you're talking specifically the outcome of COVID, the first factor is trust. Second is trade policy, and then comes technology and sustainability. Let's focus for a moment on trust. You know, the first major change I see when I talk to suppliers and also talk to retailers is the rebuilding of trust, redefining the terms of engagement and reciprocity. Trust will drive the change, and relationships have to be rebuilt. You know? The swift and shocking reaction of several retailers and importers during the pandemic, the unilateral cancellations, has caused a lot of chaos, a lot of fear, and a lot of pain in the manufacturing community. You know, the Bangladesh BGMEA made videos talking about 4.2 million people being unemployed. Same kind of videos were made by the Indian Association, the Chinese associations, etc. And these are all retailers who have their vetting processes, compliance policies that are meant to have a safe working environment for the worker. The compliance policies are supposed to take care of the workers' welfare and their livelihoods. But those same livelihoods were set aside because for the first time, retailers had this demand shock. They didn't want to shut down, but due to the pandemic, it was a forced shutdown. What do you do when you have inventories in your store, inventories in your warehouse, inventories in your pipeline? So they were put into a self-preservation mode. And for financial reasons, most of them had to take that step and announce cancellations. Of course, a few weeks later, all of them came back with different terms. Some said they will take the goods and pay for them. Others said, you can ship now and we'll pay in 90 days. Still others, I'm told, have said, ship the goods now and we'll pay you in January, etc. And a few smaller companies have just gone out of business. If you look at the list, which is put out every few weeks, more than 6,300 doors will shut in the US this year.
6,000.
And yes, that's 6,300. I'm sorry, that's only the amount between January and August. Between September, October, November, December, I don't know how many more doors will close. Plus, there are other companies that will not survive because they were dependent on the retail business. Trucking businesses, food supply businesses, people who provide services to the malls, etc. So all of those create unemployment. That unemployment affects the US economy. So retailers are still in a recovery mode. Some have a clear path forward, others do not have a clear path forward. What will the new normal be? There's still too much uncertainty and volatility to say how things are changing. And then the combination of COVID and the US trade confrontation with China, that of course is driving changes of its own. Vietnam and Bangladesh may be the initial beneficiaries in the short term because they can get the fabrics from China. The supply chain can be amended and modified and they will benefit from it. But in the medium and long term, as textile capacities ramp up in other countries, you'll see more product that could migrate. And what we talked about, like the Mexican model, countries that have textiles and have the apparel manufacturing capacity, they will probably fare well in the longer term. Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and some Latin American countries also. I'm seeing places like Honduras. There's talk of investment, very large investment for 2 woven mills. So if the woven capacity comes up, what are they going to do? Today, there are other changes also that will dictate how the sourcing patterns are going to change. As retail is suffering, more and more of the retailers are looking at reducing their stores and going into online e-commerce, right? So driven by e-commerce, other opportunities will be opening, in the post-COVID environment. Customer fulfillment, changing configurations in styles and quantities. We may see lower quantities, but more styles.
More styles and low quantities per style.
Exactly. New consumer behavior. People are not sure how long they will have their jobs, or how much money they will be earning. So consumer spending patterns will change. For me, I've been fortunate that my income has kept on coming, but I haven't been to a mall since March or April. Now, every time I would go into a mall, even if I was going to see a movie or just to walk around the mall, I had no intention of shopping. But when you walk around a mall with 20 different stores, you wind up walking in and buying something, right? And there were times when I would go specifically to shop. Then, of course, you're going to shop and you spend a lot of money on shopping. Now, I am one person. How many millions are there like me who haven't been to a mall in the last 6 months. And
Absolutely.
some of them don't even want to go because their income has gone down. So the spending patterns will be down. And today, if I go and buy a pair of jeans, I don't know when I'll go back to the mall. So I want to buy something that is going to last longer. So maybe in my age group, people will be looking for durability, something that will not wear out too fast. Younger people, those who were supposed to be going to college, some of them will go, others will be doing their classes from home. Their spending patterns
So the entire
and
buying
their,
is going
their
down. Yeah,
wardrobe is going to change.
absolutely.
So these are the factors that are beyond our control. But with e-commerce getting stronger, and we have something called curbside pickup. There's a mall near my house. If I order something from them, you cannot go inside the mall. I have to go to the parking lot, and at the various parking lots, there will be flags which will say, if you want to pick up from Bloomingdale's, or you want to pick up from Macy's, you go there, and they send you a text. You give the reference number. Someone will take your reference number, and immediately they come out with your package. So all those big stores, retailers are going to wonder why they have to keep on paying rent. So there may be a bigger shift towards online packing and online shopping. And in addition, uh, the back to school season, which was July, August. For some, it happened, for others, it never happened. The bigger trend, the biggest shopping day in the US is Black Friday, which is the day after Thanksgiving. This year, many of the stores have already announced they will not open for Thanksgiving, but Thanksgiving shopping will start online from the 1st of October.
Okay.
So instead of being compressed period of shopping where they have promotion, you will have an extended period, and the stores will also get a better read of what is selling, what is not selling, so they can control their discounts and markdowns and promotion policies better. You can have one promotion on one item today. If it's selling well, tomorrow you do the promotion on another item and you take off the promotion on this item, right? Simple. There's many things that will change in merchandising policies and in retailing policies, and going back to the upstream, that will change in their buying patterns and sourcing. If you want to buy something quickly, you can't get it from Bangladesh. Maybe you have to pay a slightly higher price. You go to Haiti, the quality is in 3 days. But in Haiti and all of Latin America, the ability to produce is limited. Some places they can make jeans like Guatemala or Mexico. Rest of Latin America is more suited to t-shirts, to polos, sweatshirts, knits. Nobody, or only one factory, I think, or two, make woven shirts. Of course, there are very good factories for suits, but suits in Latin America and in Canada are much more expensive than buying them from Vietnam. So there is the price, the available capacity, the duty preferences. GSP may now be renewed. I was on a webinar last week where the House Ways and Means Committee in the US Congress was debating the renewal of GSP and also the renewal of the CBTPA, the Caribbean Basin Initiative. They may not be renewed by September. They may be renewed a little later in the next fiscal year. But sooner or later, it looks like they will be renewed.
So the
So,
US government probably, sorry.
yes, sorry?
So for the near sourcing, near shoring, that might be kind of a mantra which US government might be kind of focused on.
Yes. And in addition to nearshoring and reshoring, offshoring, whichever way you look at it, there are always disruptors which make the changes, right? A company like Amazon today, few people realize that Amazon has 27 private labels. So when you're buying from Amazon, you don't know whether it's some brand you're buying or it's an Amazon house brand that you're buying, right? In addition, there are disruptors. Disruptors like, who can I think of? ModCloth, Stitch Fix, Bonobos, and Composite. Composite is not yet really open. There was a small brand called Bombsheller, which was founded by the famous Pablo Solman. He's a hacker and a technological genius. That he decided to look at the apparel industry and figure out how you could make one garment for one customer and deliver it within the shortest period of time. Go and look at the website for Bombsheller, and
Option.
now, yeah, and it's very interesting. No, Bonobos is more of a men's brand, and what they did was they store few stores that they had in New York. They made it a place where you could go and try the clothes, and whatever you liked out of the collection, you order, and that would be delivered to your home, or you could come back and pick it up in store. You know, and Stitch Fix, of course, has been known for a while now, and they've been doing it very successfully. They worked out some algorithms on consumer patterns, and you give them your size, your occupation, what you want, and every month they send you a new collection, a sweater, a tie, a shirt, a t-shirt, a polo shirt, a pair of jeans, a pair of slacks. You keep what you want, you send back what you don't want. See?
Absolutely.
So
Very interesting.
they, yeah, they were kind of doing okay, but now with COVID, if people are not going to want to go to the stores and shop, Stitch Fix is doing extremely well, you know. So ModCloth was someone who started a website about 7 or 8 years ago, and it was actually a college couple, boyfriend, girlfriend, they got married later on. In their college dormitory, they started this website where they would buy odd clothes here and there, put it on the website and say, okay, we're going to sell this and for $25, this dress for $35, you know, and seeing the reaction, then they would start ordering it locally in the Los Angeles market. Los Angeles, there are sewing shops where you got a lot of immigrants working. So they would start buying it there. Then, based on their understanding of the demand and how they were doing, they started also producing some of the goods in Latin America and some of them in Asia. So there are these new models and disruptors which come out. They're not going to shake the world of Walmart and Target, but they are new patterns, and they also tend to influence how sourcing patterns will change and how supply chains. There are learnings there for supply chains of major retailers on how to be agile, how to be nimble, and how to be more resilient.
And if we have more of such smaller brands and retailers who, if the number of these brands grows, then there will be a, kind of another kind of impact on the supply chain, because ultimately put together their volumes will be good, but they would be individually speaking, they would, kind of create different kind of demand.
True, very true. And today people are looking for all kinds of things, right? People are looking for circularity, sustainability, and transparency. There's organizations like E3. There's another one called My Farm, which allows you to see exactly where that cotton was grown, whether it was in North Carolina or in the Alabama or in California, which farmer grew that cotton, what kind of water do they use? Do they use water from the aquifer, from a well? Do they use the river? Do they use rainwater? Do they use reservoir water? So how much water is being used? What quality of water is being used? Do they use GMO seeds, non-GMO seeds? Is it organic cotton? What kind of pesticide, what kind of fertilizer is being used? So all these factors, people are becoming more conscious of that. And another important development now is hemp. There is a new hemp facility, an investment of $100 million, a hemp facility which is opening up in Texas. They're going to take the hemp stalks, do the decortication and the cottonization, so that then there'll be more hemp fiber available for blending with cotton, to spin hemp cotton yarns. And hemp is a hardier product, easier to grow. You need very little water, It can withstand harsh weather conditions. So there's a number of changes that are coming up. And the technology to track these products, the traceability and CBP stipulations are also going to be coming in as US Customs. We don't know what they're going to do with Xinjiang cotton now, right? If you've been reading the news, they may have
Yeah, it's a
sanctions.
huge. Yeah, absolutely.
A few years ago, you'll remember there was a big noise about Uzbekistan and Uzbek cotton. Today it's Xinjiang. So as I said, our first question was about sourcing patterns changing. So now if Xinjiang is the biggest cotton growing province in China. If you're not allowed to use Xinjiang province, where are you going to source? You have to start moving elsewhere. But how are they going to track where that Xinjiang cotton is going? You know how underground markets can develop,
It's
right?
really not possible right now.
So, so they'll become even stricter on the traceability. So if you have traceability for your cotton, and if you can come forward as a brand and say, here, this cotton came from India, from Pakistan, from Mexico, from Egypt, from Africa, wherever the cotton came from, and it was spun as a yarn in this mill, and the fabric was woven or knitted in this mill, and the cutting and sewing was done in this country. We have to be able to tell the whole story in a way that can be verified. And if you go upstream, you should be able to show that everything is audited and accredited to some standards. You know? And there's more. And of course, technology will be there. Blockchain technology, as it is adopted, will help a lot in this kind of traceability. But then the technology is not only in the systems, the technology is also in the tools for the manufacturing, right? If you, in the world of denim especially, how much water can you reduce in your washing process? Can you do ozone washes? Can you do plasma washes? In the old days, we used to do stone washing, we used to do hand sanding, we used to do sandblasting, then potassium permanganate and enzyme washes and resin dips and all these things. Today, a lot of these can be eliminated by the use of lasers.
Absolutely.
You know,
Technology.
Genealogia, Tonello, all of them. Yeah, you know, all that hand sanding and sandblasting, which used to pollute the air, and workers had to wear masks and all of that. Some of them would fall sick every 4 hours. They had to change shifts. So, you know, all these things will change. So the technology is not only in the digitization of the supply chain, but it's also in the manufacturing process. So to your questions, I said trust, and then technology, and also the trade legislations. These are the things that will be the big drivers.
That's wonderful. And I would. We are running out of time, but I would like to cover your very important project. You have been involved in the development of huge industrial park in Haiti, and it has been very successful. And I believe there's almost like 15,000 jobs created out there. So, how do you see that project? And just tell a little about the project and how do you see it going forward in current times?
Yeah, Haiti is a small country. You know, it's only 12 million people. The GDP is less than $8 billion, but it's a very complex country. The politics and the culture, the stability, the volatility made it very difficult. And the infrastructure was damaged a lot in 2010 by the earthquake. So there was a Nobel Prize winning economist and a couple of other people in the US Department of State, and I was pulled into that team. And we tried to create a plug and play environment. You know, no manufacturer would go to Haiti to set up a factory if there's no electricity, if their expats, if their supervisors and managers are not safe. So what we did was we created an industrial park which had energy, and that is the only plant till today that supplies 24/7, 99.97% reliable electricity. So electricity was there. We built roads to that park, wonderful roads inside the park. The buildings were all built resistant to earthquake and hurricanes. Water supply was on site. Wastewater treatment was on site. And we also created some housing for expats. So it was a holistic environment, plug and play. All you do is you come in with your machines, you train the workers, and that has worked very well. Even during difficult times in Haiti, they had fuel shortages, they had riots, all kinds of things. Because of a safe perimeter and a closed environment, it has grown from zero in 2012 to 14,500 workers in 2019.
It's a huge
And we
achievement.
have yeah, a very large Korean manufacturer, a Sri Lankan manufacturer, and a Taiwanese manufacturer for textiles. We also created some diversification. The, uh, there's a paint manufacturer and a sisal rope manufacturer out there. So it's been doing well, and thank you for asking. And we'll be building 6 more buildings there. So if anybody wants to come and take advantage of the Hope Help Act, which has very flexible rules of origin, we could bring fabric from China, India, Pakistan, anywhere, cut and sew out there. You could do your laundry, your dry processing, ship it to the US, 3 days transit time. You've got about 3 ships per week leaving from AD to the US. So there's a lot of advantages, and it's doing okay. So thanks for asking.
That's wonderful. But do you see theoretically, like, these kind of sourcing locations growing exponentially?
Um, I would say there is opportunity for this to happen. It depends on the governments of each of these countries. You could go to a country that today is very far behind on the sourcing spectrum. In the Eastern Hemisphere, you could look at Myanmar. The Western Hemisphere, you could look at Cuba, or today Venezuela, because Venezuela at one time was almost like a middle income country, but today, because of their politics, it's gone down. So if the political environment is right, if there is stability, if the government offers the right incentives, the apparel industry is always an industry that allows you to create jobs and is a stepping stone for development. So the opportunity is there. How aggressive each of these government gets, it depends. And let us not forget the whole continent of Africa. They don't even have to ship to the US. If you're somewhere in Tunisia or Morocco, you're right next door to the European Union. You have a very big market there. You're very close to the Middle East market. And if you look at the Western Hemisphere, it is fixated on the US. But if you look at Asia, all manufacturers ship to the US as well as to Europe, Australia, Middle East. So they are far more diversified and stable.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as you said, the COVID situation will definitely affect the sourcing patterns, and there will be different regions with different varying kind of successes. As you said, you will see a lot of business might be coming to Latin American regions, and even countries like Vietnam, Indonesia, India, and other countries may also benefit. So I think that is probably something which we are already seeing. In even last few weeks, things happening. The orders moving in these countries. So all these things are already happening, and we need to maybe we need to wait another few months to really see how this thing stabilize.
True. Well, we don't know how things will evolve. We are going to have an election in November. What will the government policies be like after that? What will the monetary policy be like? And how is unemployment going to change? How will consumer confidence change? What will the new normal be? Will there be one new normal? Will there be many new normals? We don't know. Uh, there's also going to be a lot of opportunity for direct to customer. What is to stop somebody who is a big vertical manufacturer who's got his own spinning and mill and manufacturing to start direct to customer model? You could be manufacturing, let's say in India or Pakistan or Bangladesh, open a warehouse in the US and start your own, on Shopify or Amazon or whatever. You go direct to customer. So you don't have to worry in the future that somebody is going to go bankrupt or shut down half their stores, or you have some new virus coming in the future, or a hurricane or an earthquake or anything. You control your own destiny. There's a risk to that, but if you've been a successful entrepreneur and you're ready for it, there's a new business model there.
Absolutely. So it's been wonderful speaking to you, Mark, and I really hope that you also enjoying our digital platforms, the virtual show and the brands also, which we are trying to make more popular during these times and make people use them.
It's been a pleasure, Sandeep. I've been watching all that you have been doing. You're doing a terrific job. I definitely, I've signed on to your app, the rest of your platforms. Sometimes an old guy like me, I'm technologically challenged, but yes, I'm interested, and I'll ask you for help on how to hook on to all of them. Okay?
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mark. Wonderful speaking to you. Thank you for sharing your wonderful views. Thank you.